Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something really exciting. We are taking a deep dive into the absolute heart of ancient philosophy to unlock a foundational text of Eastern thought, the Svetavattara Upanishad. We're going to explore exactly how this incredible text breaks down the cosmos, the human mind, and really the ultimate reality of everything around us. So, let's get into it.
Right off the bat, in the opening verse, the Upanishad hooks us with some massive existential questions. It basically asks, what is the cause? Why do we live? Where is our final rest? Under whose orders are we subjected to the law of happiness and misery? I mean, take a second to just ponder your own answers to those. These aren't just abstract, lofty musings. These are literally the questions that drive the entire human experience. And to think, students of Brahman were sitting around debating these exact same ideas thousands of years ago.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before we tackle the really heavy concepts, we kind of need to ground ourselves in the deep, ancient Vedic roots of this text. We're looking at a tradition where knowledge was passed down, rigorously debated, and refined by sages who were actively seeking to understand the actual fabric of reality. You know, this wasn't just some classroom theory for them. It was a lived, breathed, spiritual science.
So, to answer those huge existential questions, the text first systematically knocks down what we might normally assume is the ultimate cause of the universe. It looks at time, nature, law, maybe just blind chance. What about matter, energy, or even intelligence? The Upanishad argues that absolutely none of these, not even a combination of them, can be the ultimate cause. Why? Well, because they themselves are subject to birth and they're bound by the experience of the self. Even our individual self isn't totally free, right? Because we're constantly swayed by happiness and misery. There has to be something deeper running the whole show.
Section 1. The Cosmic Wheel and River. Having completely rejected those physical causes, the source brilliantly visualizes the universe as this massive, insanely complex wheel. Imagine a giant puzzle of a wheel with one felly, a triple tire, 16 extremities, 50 spokes, 20 counter spokes, and 6 sets of 8. And it's driven along 3 different roads. What this brilliantly illustrates is that the universe is a chaotic, incredibly complex mechanism. It's this vast system of cause and effect, where the individual pilgrim soul just gets whirled about, desperately trying to find its footing.
And hey, if a giant, dizzying mechanical wheel doesn't sound overwhelming enough for you, they also compare existence to a raging river. Look at this breakdown. It's got 5 streams, 5 big turnings, waves made of the 5 pranas, rapids that are actually 5-fold miseries, and 5 whirlpools. And the source of this crazy river? The mind itself, which bases everything on our 5 senses. This incredibly detailed metaphor really proves just how turbulent and overwhelming the illusion of life can be when you're caught up in the current.
Which brings us to Section 2, the inner fire of meditation.
So if we're tumbling in this river and spinning on this giant wheel, how in the world do we escape? Well, the text actually gives us a highly practical solution. Step 1, you have to harness the mind and the senses. You're basically holding onto your mind like reins attached to a bunch of wild horses. Step 2, regulate your breath through the nostrils once your physical activities calm down. And Step 3, which is absolutely crucial, churn the inner fire. This requires intense, unwavering focus to draw out the realization that's already hidden inside you.
Now, what's really fascinating about this part is the incredibly visceral metaphor the sages used. They write, making one's own body the lower piece of wood, and the pranava, the sacred syllable, the upper piece, churning in the form of meditation. They are quite literally comparing spiritual practice to the physical act of starting a fire. Just like you'd furiously rub 2 sticks together to coax out a hidden spark, you use your physical body and your focused mind to physically churn out the hidden realization of God. It is an active, intense, and completely transformative process. And as you churn this inner fire, the Upanishad enthusiastically gives you a roadmap of what to look out for. It lists these elemental, visual signs that will pop into your mind's eye right before Brahman manifests. You might see snow, smoke, the sun, wind, fire, a firefly, lightning, a crystal, or even the moon. It's kind of like the ancient texts are giving you this helpful little checklist of signposts, letting you know for sure that you are on the right path.
But you know, it's not all just mystical visions in your head. The text points out these surprisingly grounded physical benefits when you successfully enter this state of yoga. We're talking lightness of the body, general health, a thirstlessness of the mind, a clear complexion, a beautiful voice, an agreeable odor, and even scantiness of excretions. It really highlights how beautifully holistic this ancient practice is. Elevating the mind directly purifies the physical body. Moving on to Section 3. 2 birds, 1 tree.
Okay, so this brings us to Chapter 4, which features honestly one of the most famous and accessible psychological metaphors in all of ancient literature. It says there are two birds of beautiful plumage who are inseparable friends sitting on the exact same tree. And this brilliantly illustrates our own inner duality. Side A is the experiencer. That's the bird eating the fruits of the tree of life, totally caught up in the drama, the tastes, the highs, and the lows. But right next to it, on side B, is the observer. This bird just looks on, completely silent, not eating a thing. That is the divine witness within us, totally untouched by the world's chaos. The whole goal here is to shift our identity away from the bird eating the fruit over to the bird that's simply watching.
And that leads us to our philosophical climax. Section 4, Realizing the One Lord.
So, what does this all mean? Chapter 6 summarizes the ultimate core realization. Despite that chaotic wheel of the universe, and despite the crazy, turbulent river of life, there's ultimately only one supreme being underneath it all. The text declares, God, who is one only, is hidden in all beings. He is all-pervading and is the inner self of all creatures. He's the witness. He is the pure consciousness. Everything we've covered today, the creation, the intense meditation, the two birds on the branch, it is all pointing us toward realizing the singular, unifying presence.
To truly appreciate the weight of this idea, it's pretty fascinating to look at things impartially and see how this echoes across completely different cultures. For example, look at this incredibly famous Western Christian scripture from the Gospel of Mark. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. The thematic parallel between this ancient Eastern Vedic text and this foundational Western tradition is just striking. It really highlights this deeply universal human conclusion, right? That our search for ultimate truth almost always converges on this profound realization of absolute oneness.
Now, Chapter 3 expresses this oneness through these absolutely beautiful poetic paradoxes. I mean, how do you even begin to describe the infinite? Well, the text says, this one God goes fast without feet, grasps without hands, sees without eyes, and hears without ears, operating flawlessly without a single physical limitation. And yet, this totally unlimited being resides right inside the City of Nine Gates, which is their poetic metaphor for our own human bodies. The master of the entire universe dwells literally right inside your heart.
We're wrapping up today's explainer with this incredibly powerful metaphor from Chapter 6. Only when men shall roll up the sky like a skin will there be an end of misery for them without realizing God. Just pause and picture that for a second. Rolling up the sky like a rug. It's completely impossible, right? And that's exactly the point. The text is telling us with immense gravity that finding lasting peace and ending our misery is equally impossible if we don't achieve true self-realization. The wheel's going to keep turning, the river's going to keep flowing, until we finally turn inward, churn that fire, and realize the unity within. So it really leaves you wondering, are you ready to stop swimming against the rapids and finally look at that silent bird on the branch?